All right, so as promised, here is the video for the key of the review. I hope this helps out if you have any questions. So let's just go through these vocabulary really quick. A conditional statement is an if-then statement. That would be C. A negation is the opposite of a statement. That would be G. The converse would be F, reverses the order of the hypothesis and conclusion. For conclusion would be the phrase following but not including the word then. The inverse negates the hypothesis and conclusion. That would be H. See, the contrapositive flips and negates, so that would be I, reverses the order of the hypothesis and conclusion and negates them. A conjecture, number 7, we haven't talked about that in a while, but it's a conclusion reached by using inductive reasoning. It can be true or false. That's going to be A. J, a proof is a convincing argument that uses deductive reasoning. Hypothesis. D, the phrase following but not including the word if. Counter example, an example that shows the conjecture is false. And then deductive reasoning is going to be K, the process of reasoning logically from given statements based on facts and to a conclusion. So that's all the vocabulary. I would know that stuff. That's usually what gets some of you guys. All right, let's look at the next page. It says determine if each statement is true or false. If it is false, give a counterexample. Reading directions did not go well on the quiz for this. So it says if a number is even, then it is divisible by 2. And you could try a few of these out. 8 divided by 2 would be 4. 162 divided by 2 would be 81. So it looks like it's working. This one is true. If two numbers are even, the product is even. Again, you can try some of those out. This one's true as well. If a number is divisible by 4, then it is divisible by 10. I'm going to go ahead and say false on this one, and you have to show a counterexample. A number that's divisible by 4 but not by 10, maybe like 16 over 4 is 4, but 16 over 10 is 1.6, so that did not work. It says if 1 and 2 are supplementary, then one of the angles is acute. Well, that makes sense for most of them. If you have any angle over 90 degrees, the other one's going to have to be acute to add up to 180. However, it's false, because if angle 1 and angle 2 equal 90 degrees, they're supplementary, but neither is acute. So make sure and read the directions on those guys. The last, identify the hypothesis conclusion. I'm going to underline the hypothesis and double underline the conclusion. Feel free to do that on the test as well. Remember, these do not include the words if and then. So the hypothesis, you are an American citizen. The conclusion, you have the right to vote. The next one, hypothesis, a figure is a rectangle. It has 4 sides. Rewrite each statement as a conditional. And guys, these could be very different depending on who you are. One person could think one thing and one person can think another. So the main thing is to make them to an if-then statement. Anyone who has never made a mistake has never tried anything new. So there's a lot of different ways we could do this. I said, if you never make a mistake, then you've never tried anything new. I'm not going to write all that out because I'm lazy. But if you never made a mistake, then you have never tried anything new. An event with probability 1 is certain to occur. If an event has probability 1, then it is certain to occur. So those are, yours could sound a little bit different than that, but mainly make them into an if-then statement. I read the directions real carefully here, guys. These are not necessarily going to go in the order that we do, like converse, inverse, contrapositive. So be careful when you do these. Make sure you read which one it is. The first one says the converse. If you remember, that just switches the hypothesis and conclusion. So we could say if angle 3 is obtuse, then, I think the comma is actually after the then, the measure of angle 3 equals 91 degrees. Now, it doesn't ask us for true or false, but it could. Obviously, that is not true because it could be any angle bigger than 90. The next one, this says the inverse. That's where we negate both things. So I put if two segments do not have the same length, then they are not congruent. So be careful. Those are pretty easy, but sometimes people get them mixed up. Let's look at the next page. It looks like we've got the last one, the contrapositive. This does both. So if a figure is not a parallelogram, then the figure is not a rhombus. So I'll let y'all do that one on your own. A figure is not a parallelogram, then it is not a rhombus. The next ones, you really just got to be careful. Some of y'all just get these backwards. Remember, if these are if-then statements, so you want to say how I got from the if to the then. It says if AB is equals 11 and AB plus BC equals AC, then 11 plus BC equals AC. What they did was they took the 11, they plugged it in there, so that's substitution. 25, if 2x equals 15, then x equals 7.5. Well, obviously they divided, so the division property. If 12 equals RS, then RS equals 12. This is something equaling itself. It's flipping it around, the symmetric property. Then if A equals B and B equals C, then A somehow equals C. That's the transitive property. Okay? Now, and then just like on the homeworks, this says complete each statement using the indicated property. So the first one says it wants us to use subtraction. Well, that would make me think I subtract 15 from both sides to get the measure of angle Q equals 20 degrees. So that's a pretty easy one. Says the substitution property. If ASB equals 17, then ASB plus BST equals AST. So I'm going to substitute 17 in for ASB. 17 degrees plus the measure of angle BST equals the measure of angle AST. And then lastly, the transitive property, if angle D equals P and P equals K, then angle D must equal angle K. So pretty easy, and y'all have actually done very well on those, but just make sure you look over them before the test. Let's see, now we get into the proofs. This should go pretty well for you guys. It's gone pretty well recently, so just remember to say what you're doing every step. So the first one, to get from 1 to 2, I have to distribute the 2. That's the distributive property. Then I have 4x plus 16 equals 2x minus 8, transforms into 2x plus 16 equals negative 8. So it looks like I subtracted 2x from both sides, the subtraction property. Then I went to 2x equals negative 24. It looks like I subtracted 16. So again, the substitution or the subtraction property, I'm sorry. And then lastly, we get x equals negative 12. That looks like the divided by 2, so the division property. All right, so I don't think there's going to be much trouble there. But now we have to get to the proofs that we actually write. So let's look at those real quick. They're very similar to test proofs, so kind of keep yourself together. Don't be worried about it. I'm going to have statements over here, reasons over here, and I'm going to give you kind of the paraphrased part of this. It says, given the measure of angle ABC, and I'm going to fill this in because I'm going to have to solve it, is 4x minus 12. CBD is 6x plus 3, and then they tell me the whole thing ABD is 131 degrees. So we could absolutely solve this, no problem. We've done lots like this, but you have to remember in your statements, all 3 of the givens have to be in there. The measure of angle ABC equals 4x minus 2. And you could say given here and then state all 3 of them, or you could just put all of them on number 1. I'm going to do that to save some time. And then the measure of angle ABD equals 131. So I'm going to say all of those are given, and they're in my first step, but that's not necessarily what you have to do. Now, here's the part that people generally mess up on. You have to explicitly say what is added together to equal the whole. And so in this case, it's the angles. So I can say the measure of angle ABC plus the measure of angle CBD equals the measure of angle ABD. And that's because in one of those new ones we had the angle addition postulate. And then the rest is pretty easy. The next one that I would put in there, 4x minus 2 plus 6x plus 3 equals 131. And of course, that would be substitution. And then you would probably, it looks like, simplify. And I'm going to leave it there. Remember, your point is to get to the end where x equals 13. If you combine like terms and solve, that's what you get. Let's go to this last one. This is the one we've seen several of, but people keep messing up. Again, we're going to have statements. We're going to have reasons. Number 1, obviously, is all the given. All the given. B is midpoint of AC. AB equals 2 times x minus 15. We're going to have a distribution at some point. BC equals 6x minus 46. So we know that AB is 2 times x minus 15, and that BC is 6x minus 46. Now, this has nothing to do with the total. They don't say anything about how far it is from A to C. That's all they say. But since it says it's the midpoint, guys, I know that A to B is the same as B to C. By the way, that was given. So if I go to my number 2, I'm going to say that. I'm going to say, that AB is congruent to BC because of the definition of a midpoint. And that's where the mistakes have been. A lot of people are trying to do this like the last one where you add AB plus BC equals AC, but that's not what's happening. It's a midpoint, okay? And from there you can substitute in. You'll have to distribute and solve. But I think all that stuff can be done on your own. So good luck. I hope that goes well for you. If you have any questions, you might have some time to get me before school starts on Wednesday.